A 19-year-old girl lived at the mercy of daily violence, treated worse than the field hands on the neighboring plantation, until, on a festive morning in 1875, an elegant carriage pulled up in front of the church in the small town of Oak Creek, Virginia. The man who stepped out would not only forever change Mary Miller's destiny, but would reveal a secret capable of shaking the entire region. Senator Sebastian Albright, a mysterious widower, was not there by chance. His search for the truth about his wife's death would place them in mortal danger. Between sumptuous ballrooms and treacherous political conspiracies, Mary would be forced to make an impossible choice: save her own life or protect the man who had rescued her from the darkness. In that pre-dawn darkness in Oak Creek, before the rooster even crowed, Mary Miller, 19, was already on her feet. Her hands trembled as she lit the wood stove, a cruel routine she had known forever: wake before everyone else, make the coffee, tend to the house, and, invariably, get beaten. As she stirred the grits, heavy footsteps announced the descent of Robert Miller, her father. A 52-year-old man, his body worn by the fields and his soul by the bottle, he hadn't spoken a kind word since his wife's death 10 years prior. "Coffee ready, girl," he grumbled, sitting at the rustic table. Mary poured a mug of black coffee, strong, just how he liked it. "Today's the county fair in town. You stay and watch the house while we go." To her, a fair meant just another day of loneliness and hard labor. "Pa, could I go just for the church service?" Mary whispered, her voice barely audible. The answer was brutal, a slap that threw her against the wall. Robert stood up, knocking over his chair. "You ain't going nowhere. Ain't you enough of a burden? You want to show your face in front of decent folks?" Her older brothers, August, 25, and Charles, 23, appeared, laughing at the scene. "Let her take a beating, Pa. Maybe she'll learn not to talk back," said August, adjusting his suspenders. Mary wiped the blood from her lip with the sleeve of her patched dress. Since her mother died of fever, this was her life: working from sunup to sundown, getting beaten for any reason, and sleeping in a room smaller than the corn crib. After the three left for the fair, Mary went to the well to draw water. In the reflection, she saw her thin face, marked by the recent aggression, her green eyes, inherited from her mother, contrasted with the fresh purple bruises. She had learned to read and write in secret during visits to Reverend Anthony to fetch holy water. The kind Reverend, a man of 60, noticed her intelligence and, taking pity, taught her the first letters using the Bible. "Education is the one thing no one can take away from you, my child," the religious man used to say. Mary kept her only 3 books: a small Bible, a book of poems, and a treatise on medicinal plants, in a box buried under the maple tree in the backyard. That Saturday, while waiting for the family's return, she decided to go to the creek to wash the week's laundry. She carried the heavy bundle 200 yards to the running water, where other women from the neighborhood were already washing. Mrs. Josephine, a 65-year-old neighbor, waved from afar. She was one of the few to treat Mary with kindness. "How are you, honey?" The bruise on her face was undeniable. "Your daddy hit you again?" asked Mrs. Josephine, wringing out a shirt. Mary nodded. Talking about the abuse consumed her, but lying to Josephine's genuine concern was unthinkable. "One day this will change, Mary. God doesn't forget those who suffer," the lady promised. Mary smiled, a sad gesture. At 19, hope seemed dead. The church bell announced noon under the relentless January sun in the village of Oak Creek, Virginia. Mary was finishing hanging the clothes, heading to the square to get the greens that Mr. Al, the grocer, always saved for her. The village, with 400 souls, had the square as its heart, a stage for festive days, flanked by the church and the town hall. Then an unusual sound broke the midday silence. A rhythmic drumming, an elegant gallop, made all conversations cease. Mary looked up. A gleaming black carriage, pulled by 2 white horses, stopped in front of the church. From it descended a man, Senator Sebastian Albright. At 42, the senator radiated aristocracy. Dark hair with grey strands, a fine linen suit, perfect for the heat. His brown eyes swept the square with unquestionable authority. People stepped back. Everyone knew his story. A widower for 3 years, owner of the imposing Sunnyvale estate in the Shenandoah Valley, a man of few but firm words. Mary, on her knees, was scrubbing the church steps, her hands calloused. She felt the heavy gaze upon her. She raised her head, and her eyes locked with his. In that eternal instant, the senator saw the marks on her face, the wounded hands, but also the unshakable dignity she maintained, even in humiliation. He walked slowly toward Mary. She tried to stand up hurriedly, but a gentle gesture from the senator stopped her. "What is your name, miss?" The voice deep, but surprisingly soft. "Mary Miller, Senator," she replied without looking him in the eye. "Can you read, Mary?" The question struck her. For a woman there, knowing how to read was rare. She hesitated. "Yes, sir, a little." Before the shocked gazes of the square, the senator knelt. From his coat, he took a small brown leather book. "Read these lines for me." With trembling hands, Mary took the poems of Longfellow. She opened the page, and her voice, clear and paused, echoed, "Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream. For the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem." A rare smile appeared on the senator's lips. It revealed not just reading, but sensitivity and intelligence. "Who taught you?" he questioned. "Reverend Anthony, sir, in spare moments." At that exact moment, Robert Miller, Mary's father, and his sons approached. Robert bowed. "How can I help you, Senator?" "Did my daughter make a mistake?" The senator interrupted him. "On the contrary, Mary is a brilliant young woman. I seek someone as a companion and tutor for my goddaughter. She would be perfect." Robert paled. The tension was palpable. Losing Mary meant losing his free maid. However, crossing Senator Sebastian Albright brought serious risks to the family. "Senator," Robert Miller argued, "she is too young, inexperienced." The senator, impassive, replied, "Youth is molded with guidance. Intelligence, however, is a gift. Do you accept the proposal?" A sepulchral silence dominated the square. Mary felt her heart hammering. Trading that life of abuse for a future with the senator was tempting, but it meant abandoning everything she knew. Robert calculated the costs. Refusing would provoke the wrath of the authorities. Accepting, he would lose the daughter who, without a penny, kept the home running. "What would be the compensation, Senator?" he finally dared. The offer was undeniable. $20 a month, room and board. Mary would receive a refined education, piano, French, etiquette. A singular opportunity. $20 exceeded the family's income for 3 months. Robert yielded. "I accept, Senator. When will you take her?" The answer, a lightning bolt in a clear sky. "Now," Mary started. "But sir, I have no clothes." The senator assured, "We will provide everything. Fetch only what is most personal to you. We leave in an hour." With her heart racing, Mary ran home. In the backyard, the small treasure, the box with her books, her only wealth hurriedly packed in a cloth sack. Back at the square, Senator Sebastian Albright waited for her by the imposing carriage. He extended his hand, calming her. "Do not be afraid, Mary. Your life restarts today." She cast a last look. Robert, August, and Charles watched with anger and relief stamped on their faces. Mrs. Josephine, in the distance, waved with teary eyes. The coachman, a gray-haired freedman, set the horses in motion. Inside the carriage, a novelty for Mary, the green velvet seat and silk curtains revealed a world of luxury. Trying to break the silence, she asked, "What is your goddaughter's name, Senator?" "Helen, 15 years old, orphan of my dear friend, Colonel Henry Cole. She needs female companionship and polished instruction. You will be her assistant." The carriage advanced along the dirt road toward Sunnyvale Estate, in the valley. The familiar landscape of Oak Creek faded on the horizon, filling Mary with dread and hope. The 3-hour journey was an adventure, every mile a new universe, imposing farms, 2-story houses, fields where sharecroppers worked. After an hour, curiosity won. "Senator, why did you choose me? There are more educated girls from nobler families in the village." The senator smiled. "Mary, in 42 years I learned that character transcends social position. I saw in your eyes a dignity that cannot be learned, and I observed how you read. You don't just decode words, you understand them deeply. A blush rose to Mary's face, an unprecedented recognition. Tell me about your goddaughter, please. The senator's countenance darkened. Helen lost her parents 2 years ago in a yellow fever epidemic in Charleston. Her father, Colonel Cole, and I were inseparable. I promised to care for her as a daughter. She has lived with me since then. He continued. She is intelligent, but extremely reserved. No tutor has lasted. The last 3 quit in less than a month. Mary felt a tightness in her chest. May I know the reason? The senator hesitated. Helen has a challenging temperament. Since the loss of her parents, she has become rebellious. Refuses piano, doesn't want French lessons, spends her days immersed in novels or riding horses. Mary, understanding, sketched a smile. Mary Miller, a young woman of only 19, was seeking her place after a lifetime of hardship. Senator Sebastian Albright noticed her perceptive look. You have a peculiar vision, Mary, he observed. Sunnyvale Estate in the Virginia countryside stood out like a private kingdom. Mary had never seen such grandeur. The main house, a white mansion with blue details, rose imposingly, surrounded by vast gardens and outbuildings, staff quarters, the overseer's house, the mill and stables. My family has cultivated these lands for 3 generations, the senator explained, noticing Mary's astonishment. From tobacco to wheat, today we prosper with 50 hands and 1,000 bushels a year. The carriage stopped. Francis, the head butler, an elderly black man in livery, opened the door. Mary stepped down, her kindness surprising him. Welcome, Mary Miller, the new tutor for Miss Helen. The senator introduced Francis, who bowed. Inside, the house was even more sumptuous. A high-ceilinged hall, polished floors, mahogany furniture and family portraits. A crystal chandelier dominated the space. Then, Helen ran down the carved staircase. Curly brown hair, green eyes, wearing a yellow muslin dress worth more than all of Mary's possessions. My new tutor. How old? 18? 19? The others were old and boring. Mary smiled. 19. Great. I hope you last. The last one ran away crying because of a snake in the drawer. Helen, reprimanded the senator. It was just a little garden snake, Godfather, and not even venomous. Mary laughed, enchanted. I grew up in the country. Snakes don't scare me. Helen broke into a radiant smile. Francis took Mary to the guest room on the 2nd floor. It was a vast chamber, surpassing the living room of her old house. A canopy bed, carved wardrobe, desk by the window, and a reading armchair. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Francis, she said. Alone, Mary stared at the landscape. The fields faded into the horizon. A new world. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. It was Helen, with tea and biscuits. Thought you might be hungry. The trip is long. They sat facing each other. Mary, can I ask why you came? You're so young for a tutor. What was your life like before? Mary hesitated. How to describe abuse to someone born in a cradle of gold? My situation was difficult. Your godfather offered a better life. Helen stared at her. You were beaten, weren't you? The frankness disarmed her. Why that question? I recognize the marks. I got hit for a while too. What do you mean? Helen lowered her voice. My godfather is good, but he changed after my godmother died. Severe, drunk sometimes. The sentence hung in the air, but Mary understood. And now? He doesn't drink anymore, or at least not as much. Mary, this house hides an inexplicable mystery. Helen pointed to the small stone cottage in the garden. There, the studio of Baroness Elizabeth. Mrs. Elizabeth, my godmother. She painted divinely. But after her death, Sebastian locked everything, forbidding entry. Mary pondered. Memories, perhaps. Helen whispered, Mary, I see light in there at dawn. Yesterday I heard noises. A shiver. Did you tell him? He gets irritated. Girls' fantasies, he says. A knock interrupted the secret. Girls' dinner in an hour. The senator's voice. Mary, clothes in the wardrobe. Helen opened it, revealing Elizabeth's dresses. They were hers. You are the same size. He asked me to choose. Mary touched a navy blue one. Too beautiful. Nonsense. You are pretty, Mary. You just need to dress up. While Helen helped her dress, another bombshell. My godmother died of fever officially, but the servants, they whisper she was poisoned. Mary stopped. By whom? I don't know. Godfather knows more. The killer could be right here. The dinner bell echoed. Mary went down the stairs with her heart hammering into something much bigger. The dining room of Sunnyvale Estate was imposing. Mahogany table, leather chairs, crystal cabinet. Senator Sebastian Albright in velvet drank more wine than he ate. Mary, your education? He inquired. With Reverend Anthony, reading, arithmetic and basic history, books, Bible, Longfellow, one on medicinal plants. Helen got interested. Medicinal plants? Do you make remedies? Basics, Mary confirmed. Chamomile tea, arnica, watercress. The senator observed her. Valuable knowledge. Elizabeth also loved natural medicine. For the first time, his face didn't darken. Was she a doctor? Not officially. She healed many. Mastered plant secrets unknown to most. Helen and Mary exchanged looks. Godfather, Helen dared. Her notebooks. In the studio. Everything is there. Mary could study them. No. The senator's voice was cutting, aggressive. No one enters the studio. I already said it. An awkward silence. Helen lowered her head. Forgive me, Senator. He drank more wine, seeking calm. I apologize. It is delicate. Elizabeth died 3 years ago, but it feels like yesterday. After dinner, Mary followed Helen to her room. The room, in white and pink, overflowed with porcelain dolls and bookshelves. Does your godfather always react like that when they speak of his wife? Mary asked, settling in. Always, but today was different. He usually walks away. Today, he spoke of her. Helen handed over an old diary. My godmother's. I saved it before Sebastian locked everything up. Mary opened the leather volume. The handwriting, elegant and feminine, intrigued her. Have you read this, Helen? Some parts. The handwriting is complex, many passages in Latin. She used Latin to hide recipes from prying eyes. Among medicinal formulas, Mary discovered intimate notes. So look here, Helen pointed. Mary read, barely audible. March 15th, 1872. I discovered something terrible about Sebastian. I do not believe the man I married is capable of such a thing. I need proof. Helen turned the page. March 22nd. The proofs are in the office safe. If something happens to me, let someone find them. Justice must prevail. What Sebastian did cannot go unpunished. A chill froze Mary. What proofs, Helen? I don't know, but 3 days later my godmother died. Coincidence? Their eyes met. The danger was imminent if the senator discovered the diary. We need to open that safe, whispered Helen. And if they catch us? It's a risk. She deserves justice. At Sunnyvale Estate, Mary spent the night in suspense. The fear of the senator discovering the diary consumed her. Near 2 in the morning, footsteps in the hallway. She pressed her ear to the door. The footsteps, now distant, went downstairs. The hallway, illuminated by the moon, was empty. Mary, cautious, went to Helen's room. Helen, it's me. The door opened. Did you hear? Whispered Mary. Yes. My godfather always goes down to the office at night. Helen hesitated. It's our chance. Your godmother may have been murdered. We need to know the truth. They went down the stairs, avoiding the creaky steps. The house, silent, echoed only the pendulum clock. A crack of light under the office door confirmed the senator's presence. How do we get in? Mary asked. The back garden door. He always forgets it. Barefoot on the cold grass, they found it unlocked. Helen moved it millimeter by millimeter. Inside, a vast office with shelves and a mahogany desk. In a corner, a massive safe. But what really shocked them was the scene through the crack of the main door. The senator, sitting at the desk, head in his hands, sobbing like a child. With eyes fixed on Elizabeth's portrait and a bottle of bourbon almost empty, Senator Sebastian Albright lamented, Elizabeth, forgive me. You were not supposed to know. Mary Miller heard the confession. The senator finally revealed the truth behind his wife's death. Their worst suspicions were real. "The safe," whispered Helen to Mary. "I know the combination. Day and month of Elizabeth's birthday." While Mary watched Senator Sebastian absorbed in his alcoholic torment, Helen opened the mechanism. The tiny click was enough to hold their breath, but not to wake the man. From there, a bundle of letters tied with red ribbon. Back in the room, the silence was tense as they prepared to read. The first revelation hit Mary like lightning. The letters detailed a seditionist conspiracy, with Sunnyvale Estate serving as a refuge for the conspirators. "Your godfather is a traitor to the Union," exclaimed Helen. The federal government was a threat to their rights. This was pure treason against the nation. A second letter from days before Elizabeth's death brought the horror. "Your wife discovered our plans. She threatens to expose everything if we do not cease. You must control her." The final blow came from the third correspondence. "I regret Elizabeth's sudden death. It was necessary to protect our cause. The doctor attested fever as agreed. The Brotherhood thanks you for your sacrifice." Mary felt the air vanish. Elizabeth had been murdered, and Senator Sebastian. A draft in his handwriting confirmed his participation. "Colonel Moore, Elizabeth was naive. I demand that the person responsible never sets foot in Sunnyvale Estate again. I do not want to see the face of the one who took my wife's life." Helen collapsed in tears. He didn't kill her directly, but allowed her to be killed. Now both held a deadly secret. The night dragged on in panic and plans. Helen wanted to confront Senator Sebastian, but Mary warned about the danger. "They killed Elizabeth for much less. We have to be smart. For now, we know nothing." At dawn, Mary had an idea. "I will write to Reverend Anthony. He will know what to do." She would ask the senator for permission to send news to her family without arousing suspicion. At the breakfast table, Senator Sebastian, visibly shaken, questioned them. Mary asked for permission, which he granted, promising that Francis would take the letter to Oak Creek the next day. 2 letters would be written, one to her father, Robert Miller, with reassuring words. Another, detailing the entire plot, would be the urgent plea for help to Reverend Anthony. In French class, Helen was restless. "Strange men arrived early," she revealed, eyes on the window. Mary spotted 3 imposing figures in city suits with Senator Sebastian at the stables of Sunnyvale Estate. "Do you recognize any?" "No, but the one with the scar gives me the creeps." Francis burst in. "Miss Mary, Senator Sebastian expects you in the office, urgent." Mary's blood ran cold. The safe. Had they discovered her intrusion? Helen offered, "I'll go with you." "No, miss, only Miss Mary." A shared look sealed the fear. On the way down, Mary's legs trembled. In the office, door open, Senator Sebastian waited, flanked by 3 men. "Mary, come in and close it." She obeyed, seeking composure. "These are my associates," introduced the senator. "Colonel Moore, Captain Oliver, Dr. Matthews." Mary curtsied. Colonel Moore, the one with the scar, was the one from the letters about the late Elizabeth. The senator continued, grave. "Worrying news. Rumors in Oak Creek about my wife." Mary's heart raced, but her voice remained firm. "What kind of talk, sir?" "Speculations about the death, poisoning, murder." Colonel Moore advanced, icy eyes. "Girl, do you know who invents slander?" "No, sir. In the village they create stories," Mary replied. "But they are specific," he insisted. "Details only someone very close would know." Mary felt the test. One slip, her ruin. "Colonel, I arrived yesterday. I lived isolated. I wouldn't know details." Senator Sebastian confirmed. Mary is new and simple. Captain Oliver, skeptical, pondered. "Coincidence that rumors start with your arrival." "What rumors are these, after all?" Mary risked, breaking the silence. Dr. Matthews revealed, "Elizabeth was poisoned for discovering political activities." Mary simulated shock. "Political activities? What kind?" Senator Sebastian, uncomfortable, stood up. "Mary, you may withdraw, resume lessons with Helen." But Colonel Moore held her back. "Wait, more questions." He approached, intimidating. "Can you read?" Yes, sir. Access to the office? No, sir. Never entered. Are you sure? Someone touched the safe. Fresh prints. Cold sweat ran down, but Mary maintained innocence. I don't know what safe you speak of. The colonel turned to the senator. Sebastian, who else has access? Only me, Helen, and Francis for cleaning. And Helen, does she know how to open the safe? Impossible, she is a child. Captain Oliver intervened coldly, a 15-year-old child, orphan, perhaps seeking answers about her godmother. Mary knew. She needed to deflect suspicion from Helen. A bold suggestion. The rumors in Oak Creek could come from the servants. They see and hear everything. The gamble worked. Makes sense, Doctor, Matthews admitted. They know more. Colonel Moore ordered, Senator Sebastian, interrogate them. Whoever talks too much. The gesture to the throat was enough. Mary stays under surveillance, confined to Sunnyvale Estate. No visits, no letters. Mary's heart sank. Her message to Reverend Anthony would not go out. It is necessary, protested the senator. Our cause is at stake. With a tight heart, Mary ran to Helen's room. The girl waited for her, anxious. What happened? I heard voices. Mary whispered. They knew about the safe, but she had shifted the blame to the staff. Helen paled. They will kill innocent people for us. Guilt froze Mary. We need to warn them, but I am trapped. No letters, Helen thought. There is a way. Francis's daughter washes clothes in Oak Creek. She comes every Friday. Mary hesitated. Too risky. Francis dies too. Don't you understand? Helen retorted. Francis was trusted by my godmother. If he knows the truth, he will want justice. That afternoon, Mary watched from the window. The interrogations in the quarters were brutal. Servants came out crying, stumbling. At 5, Helen, Francis waits for us in the pantry. There, the old man with calloused hands, grave eyes, asked, Do you know what is happening? Mary and Helen exchanged a look. More than we should, Mr. Francis. So, you know that Mrs. Elizabeth was killed? The frankness shocked them. You know? Helen asked. Child, I looked after her since she was a bride. It wasn't fever, it was strychnine. Mary felt the weight of the alliance. How do you know? My grandmother, an African healer, taught me about poisons. Strychnine kills slowly, with convulsions that deceive. Helen held his hand. Why the silence? Who would I tell? The master who let her die? Accomplices? A black man accusing the master becomes meat for the gallows. Mary understood the impossibility. But now there is proof documents. She told him about the letters. Francis listened, fists clenched. These men killed my mistress? Under Colonel Moore's order, servants were interrogated. They sought the culprit for the leaks. Francis knew it was time to act. His daughter Lucy would come tomorrow. Francis saw the chance. She would take a message to Reverend Anthony in Oak Creek. Mary Miller doubted. Can we trust her? Lucy hates injustice as I do, Francis guaranteed. Knowing that Elizabeth was murdered for defending what is right will give us her help. Helen had a flash. Francis, Elizabeth's studio. Forbidden by Senator Sebastian, Francis cleaned it, knew its secrets. Is there something vital hidden? The old man smiled. Yes, Elizabeth, astute, foresaw the danger. She left a letter in a paint can. It details the conspiracy, asking for delivery to the federal authorities should the worst occur. Mary and Helen looked at each other. Can you take us? Tonight, Francis decided. Tomorrow will be too late. At midnight in the kitchen, Francis waited with a lantern and keys. How did you get them? Mary asked. Senator Sebastian keeps a copy in the office, but the original Elizabeth hid it in the Bible in the library. They walked in silence through the back to the small studio 50 yards away. Francis opened it. The interior, dusty, was intact. Easels, brushes, palettes, just as Elizabeth had left them. The paint can, Helen whispered. On the back shelf, behind the water jars. Mary searched. Francis kept watch. She found a white can, too light. Found it. Inside, an envelope sealed in waxed paper. Elizabeth's handwriting warned, urgent proof of conspiracy against the Union. Mary opened it, hands trembling. The letter, long and detailed, named conspirators, described plans, denounced the threats. Elizabeth's final wish: if this letter is found, I paid with my life for my principles. I ask that the guilty be punished, the truth revealed, that the people of Sunnyvale be treated with dignity. A bomb, Mary whispered. It can destroy everything. Then footsteps. Francis extinguished the lantern. Someone is coming! Through the crack, Senator Sebastian and Colonel Moore approached with a lantern. Hide! Francis hissed. Mary pocketed the letter. The three squeezed behind an easel. The senator and the colonel entered. The light danced in shadows. Are you sure Elizabeth hid something here? The colonel insisted. Yes. Before she died, she spent hours here, writing. Mary, Helen, and Francis held their breath, motionless. We already searched the obvious places, Senator Sebastian grumbled. Drawers? Trunks. She was smart. She would hide it where no one would ever look. Colonel Moore examined the empty can. Paper marks at the bottom. Documents, Sebastian, he sentenced. Mary Miller froze. Elizabeth would never waste. And the footprints? 3 sets. One of a child, another of an old man. The third? A sneeze. Helen. The sound reverberated in the studio. Come out from there. Moore bellowed, revolver in hand. The three emerged, hands raised. Senator Sebastian, pale, confronted Helen. My goddaughter, what are you doing here? The truth about my godmother, she challenged. The colonel pointed at Mary. Where is the document? Hand it over or you die. Mary knew the danger. I have nothing, Moore ordered. Search her. The senator hesitated. But the threat was lethal. Mary saw the senator's terror. Francis stepped forward. Colonel, I know where it is. Francis, no, Mary whispered. He had a plan. Mrs. Elizabeth hid the letter under the maple tree, in the backyard. Moore lowered the gun. If you lie, you hang. Francis guaranteed. I can show you. Mary understood. Francis was buying time. Everyone there, Moore commanded. In single file they followed to the orchard. Francis dug, repeating, must be deeper. Mary whispered to Helen, at the signal, run to Oak Creek, straight to Reverend Anthony. And you? I stay. Either we both go, or neither. Moore, out of patience, pointed the gun at Francis. Enough, where is the letter? Last chance. In a flash of courage, Mary displayed the letter. It is here. I took it from the studio. Moore spun, gun raised. Hand it over. Only if you let Francis and Helen go. You are not in a position to bargain. But Mary, forged in oppression, lost her fear. Colonel, this letter has the names of the conspirators. If something happens to us, others in Oak Creek will know what to look for. It was a convincing bluff. What people? An alarm ran through Senator Sebastian. Reverend Anthony knows everything. I sent him a letter yesterday with the conversations I heard and the documents we found. Colonel Moore and the senator exchanged tense looks. Impossible, said the senator. You were being watched. Francis has his methods, Mary Miller retorted, a grateful look at the old servant. Francis confirmed. My daughter Lucy took the letter before you gentlemen arrived. Colonel Moore became agitated. If this is true, we are compromised. Sebastian, we need to leave Sunnyvale tonight. Better to lose the estate than our heads. Mary realized her brief advantage. Colonel, a proposal. Leave Helen and Francis in peace and I hand over the letter. Helen did not protest. It is the only way. At that instant, a thunder of horses approaching along the main road. They galloped fast. What hell is this? Murmured the colonel. 10 armed men appeared, lanterns in hand. In front, a military uniform. It is Lieutenant Rogers of the Federal Marshals. The senator recognized, paling. The message to Reverend Anthony had arrived. Lieutenant Rogers dismounted, advancing with his soldiers. A man in his early 30s, martial and determined. Senator Sebastian Albright, you are under arrest for conspiracy against the United States government. Colonel Moore tried to hide the gun, in vain. Colonel Virgil Moore, arrested for the same crimes. How did you know? Asked the senator, resigned. Reverend Anthony gave us detailed information. Furthermore, We have a witness who witnessed the poisoning of Mrs. Elizabeth. Mary felt the surprise. What witness would that be? The lieutenant turned to Francis. Are you, Francis, employed at this estate? Yes, sir. Reverend Anthony stated that you hold crucial data on the death of the lady. Francis advanced, courageous. Yes, sir, I saw Dr. Matthews put strychnine in Elizabeth's tea. I recognized it by the smell. My grandmother taught me about poisons. Dr. Matthews, silent until then, tried to flee, but was restrained. Furthermore, Francis continued, these girls found letters that proved the conspiracy. Mary handed Elizabeth's letter to the lieutenant, who read it by the lantern light. Devastating, enough proof to convict everyone. Colonel Moore made a last desperate attempt. Lieutenant, is it the word of servants and women against men of standing? What court would accept this? A court that values the truth, from whomever it comes, the officer replied dryly. Besides the letters from the conspirators themselves. The three men were handcuffed. And us? Helen asked, frightened. You are important witnesses. I will need statements, but you are no longer in danger. An immense relief invaded Mary. The next morning, Sunnyvale Estate was unrecognizable. Federal soldiers searched every room for more evidence. Mary, Helen, and Francis testified. Lieutenant Rogers showed interest in Mary's account of her recruitment. Miss Mary, was your hiring mere chance? What do you mean, Lieutenant? Our investigation revealed. The senator sought someone from outside with no local ties for the estate. Mary Miller felt a cold shiver. Chosen for her vulnerability, not her intelligence, she realized she was a disposable piece, an easy target. Helen, her friend, squeezed her hand, moved. Your courage saved us all. Francis, a loyal servant, nodded. Mrs. Elizabeth always said that the truth has its own strength. Lieutenant Rogers, impressed, granted him a special commendation. For your loyalty and bravery, Francis, you are a free man in every sense, and you will be rewarded for years of service. Tears welled in the old man's eyes, who could barely believe it. Truly independent, after 60 years. He could, if he wanted, continue at Sunnyvale, now under federal administration, or go anywhere. Mary, however, also faced an uncertain future. Lieutenant, what will become of me? I have nowhere to go. Rogers had a bold proposal. The government needs courageous minds for special missions. Would you accept becoming an intelligence agent for the Crown, I mean, the Union? The offer was frightening and seductive. Infiltrate, collect information, combat seditionist cells. Countless dangers, but also purpose and independence, something unthinkable for someone like her. A whole day of reflection brought no easy answers. Meanwhile, Helen struggled with a devastating truth. Her godfather, Senator Sebastian, had betrayed and murdered her godmother, Elizabeth. How to forgive this, Mary? He raised me. Her voice choked in the estate garden. Mary, wise in her own pain, replied, You are not guilty of his choices, and justice is being done. Indeed, Lieutenant Rogers confirmed. Senator Sebastian confessed his participation and would get life imprisonment. Colonel Moore and Dr. Matthews would be executed for treason. The conspiracy, larger than imagined, was dismantled. Helen questioned her own future. I am an orphan, my guardian is in prison. What will I do? Rogers already had the solution. A respectable aunt in Boston had offered to raise her. It was a fresh start, far from the shadows of the past. Mary, in her own dilemma, asked for a few days to decide on the government's offer. Do not take long, warned Rogers. Other cells wait. That night, under the uncertainty of tomorrow, Mary confessed to Helen, It is scary, but for the first time I can choose my destiny. 3 days later, Mary made a decision. In the office of Sunnyvale Estate, now the headquarters of the investigation, she found Lieutenant Rogers. I accept your proposal, stated Mary. Rogers nodded. We leave for Washington, D.C. next week. There, Mary would be trained in investigation, disguise, and secret communication. Helen, in turn, would head to Boston to her aunt's care. Sadness pricked Mary. In a few days, Helen had become her first true friend. That afternoon they walked through the gardens, now peaceful under the sun. Helen handed over a package. Mary, something for you." It was the old diary, the piece that started the whole investigation. "I cannot accept. It is your memory of your godmother," Helen insisted. She would be happy seeing it with someone who fights for justice. They embraced, silent tears. "Write to me from Boston, always," asked Mary. "And you tell your secret agent adventures?" "The ones I can." Mary laughed, tearful. Francis approached with a suitcase. "I prepared useful things for your new life," he said. "Inside, books on medicinal plants, some of Helen's remedies, and money." "Francis, I cannot." "Yes, you can, child. You saved so many lives. It is the minimum." Mary asked, "And now that you are free?" He smiled. "I will look after the farm until the government decides. Then maybe travel. At 60, there is still much to see and learn." Mary admired the serenity of that man who, after a life in servitude, embraced freedom. On the morning of departure, Mary woke early, a last look at the room, her first true home. In less than a week, her life turned completely, from oppressed girl to intelligence agent of the Union. She wore a discreet blue linen dress, a gift from Helen, and went down for breakfast. The table was set for 4. Her, Helen, Francis, and Lieutenant Rogers. A scene that days before would be unthinkable. An ex-servant, 2 young women, an officer together. Over coffee, Rogers broached, "I studied your case more deeply. Your previous family situation was deplorable. I can investigate your father, Robert Miller, and your brothers, Charles and August, for abuse." Mary pondered. "Revenge or future?" "No, Lieutenant. I leave them to their own conscience. I prefer to focus my energy on the future." Rogers nodded. "It is a wise attitude. Revenge consumes the seeker more than the deserving." Helen was visibly quiet, nervous about the change. "Helen," Mary comforted her, "your aunt is really a good person. From the letters, she always wanted a daughter and offered to raise you." "So I will have a real family?" Helen asked, voice choked. "I hope so. I have suffered enough with complicated guardians." Francis, fulfilling his butler role for the last time, poured more coffee. The next day he would be a man of means. "Francis, won't you miss this routine?" Mary asked. He replied, "The people, yes. The servitude, no. There is a profound difference between serving by obligation and serving by choice." Mary Miller's destiny began to take shape at 9 in the morning when a carriage picked her up, along with Helen, heading to the station. From there, Washington, D.C. awaited them, and a new life. It was the first time both traveled by train. Mary was fascinated by the speed, the comfort of the locomotive. Helen with the landscape fading out the window. During the long hours, Lieutenant Rogers began Mary's instruction. "Being an intelligence agent demands courage, intelligence, and discretion, qualities you already possess. But the path will also demand new skills." "What kind?" Mary asked, curiosity mixed with apprehension. "Investigation techniques, document analysis, cipher codes, disguise, and, crucially, self-defense. You will deal with conspirators, criminals, traitors, Mary. You won't always have military protection." The weight of her future commitment crashed down on her. "Lieutenant," Mary questioned, "may I ask a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you have family, wife, children?" "I did. My wife and son died of cholera 5 years ago. Since then, my life is entirely dedicated to the service of the country." Mary understood. Intelligence attracted those without strong ties. "Do you not feel loneliness?" "I do, but there is purpose. Every conspiracy dismantled, every traitor caught, is a small revenge against the chaos that took my family." Helen, who listened attentively, intervened. "It seems we are all running from something." "Perhaps," Lieutenant Rogers agreed, "but we are also running towards something better." Upon arriving in D.C., Mary found herself submerged in the immensity of the capital. Streets bustling with people, carriages, street vendors. The Potomac was a cauldron of ships. "Here will be your home for the next few months." Lieutenant Rogers indicated a discreet townhouse in Georgetown. "It is a government safe house where you will train and receive your first missions." Mary looked at Helen. The time for farewell had arrived at the station, more painful than she imagined. Helen would depart for Boston, Mary, for agent training. Mary, promise you will be careful. Helen hugged her tight. I promise. And you, promise you will be happy with your aunt. I'll try. You taught me to choose my destiny. Lieutenant Rogers handed money to Helen. The government takes care of those who help us. Thank you, Lieutenant. Take good care of Mary. You can be sure. Mary accompanied Helen to the train. On the platform, Helen turned one last time. Mary, if one day you tire of the adventure, come visit me in Boston. There will always be a place for you. And if you tire of the quiet life, find me. We will always need the brave. They laughed, aware that their destinies, already intertwined, would reunite them. With the train departing, Mary waved until Helen was a distant point. Then she turned to Lieutenant Rogers. I am ready. The safe house in Georgetown was simple but functional. Library, physical training room, rooms for agents. There, Mary met Mrs. Mary, 50 years old, the administrator and master of etiquette and disguise. Mary, your first lesson is this, Mrs. Mary explained. A good agent knows how to become invisible when necessary and unforgettable when convenient. What do you mean? Sometimes you will need to pass unnoticed in the crowd. In the intricate world of espionage, every step is calculated. Sometimes, the mission requires attracting attention to divert targets. Others, subtlety is needed to obtain information. Everything, absolutely everything, depends on strategy. It was thinking about this that, on her first night in the new life, Mary Miller could barely sleep. In just 1 week, she had crossed the abyss, from frightened victim to unlikely heroine, from mere servant to a promising government agent. The first months were a forge of character. Under the tutelage of Professor Augustus, a retired detective, Mary dove into investigation techniques. The first rule, he insisted, is that coincidences do not exist. Everything has a logical explanation, you just need patience to find it. The art of disguise and acting came with Mrs. Mary. Every character you embody must be impeccably convincing, she warned. A single detail out of place can cost your life. Sergeant Oliver, a veteran of the Civil War, took over physical training. Your greatest advantage, he repeated in fencing lessons, will not be strength but your intelligence and speed. Use them without hesitation. On rare nights off, Mary wrote to Helen, revealing the little she could about her new reality. Helen's replies were a balm. The aunt was a kind person, and she was in school, dreaming of becoming a teacher. Then the moment came. After 6 months of exhausting training, Lieutenant Rogers summoned Mary to his office. You are ready for your first field mission, he announced. There were suspicions of a seditionist cell operating in Newport, Rhode Island, infiltrated in high society. Mary would pass as a governess in an influential family. A mix of excitement and icy nervousness took her. When do I leave? She asked. Tomorrow, was the answer. Remember everything you learned and above all, trust your instincts. They already saved your life at Sunnyvale. On that last night in Washington, Mary organized her few but essential belongings. Hidden at the bottom of the suitcase, Helen's diary, now her personal talisman. Seeing herself in the mirror, the image was of a 20-year-old woman, elegant, firm posture, determined look. A radical transformation from the frightened girl who had left Oak Creek, Virginia, less than a year ago. Newport, the elegant summer refuge, would be her new stage. Mary disembarked as Isabel Mendez, a governess from a French school, hired for the children of Commodore Felix Nash. The Nash mansion was imposing, neoclassical architecture, vast gardens, and numerous staff. Mrs. Eulalia, the Commodore's wife, received her with aristocratic airs. Miss Isabel, I hope you adapt well. We have Peter, 15, Mary, 12, and John, 10. All need refined education. Mary, with a serene voice, replied, Certainly, Mrs. Eulalia. What will be my routine? Lessons in the morning, supervised by me. Afternoon, free time. On visiting nights, join us in the salon. We consider social interaction also educational. It was perfect. The salon gatherings would be her window for investigation. In the initial weeks, Mary focused on building her credibility. The children were intelligent, making her role as governess genuinely pleasant. But it was during a dinner at the end of the first month that Mary noticed something strange. A detail, a whisper, a sign. Something was wrong. Among the guests stood out Professor Albert, a specialist in political philosophy with a bold vision. "The country needs a modern government," he declared, casting a significant glance, "based on reason, on progress, not on antiquated traditions." Mary Miller observed the room. Some vibrated, others maintained a studied neutrality. Later in the library, while the men smoked cigars, Mary positioned herself near the door. The contacts in Richmond were eliminated. Careful after Senator Sebastian Albright. Next meeting at Dr. Matthews' house. Every word reverberated. Mary's heart raced. She had what she sought. In the following weeks, Mary Miller wove her web. With her supposed French education and political knowledge, she soon infiltrated the Republican circle of the Nash House. Professor Albert, captivated by her youth and intelligence, saw her as a symbol of progress. "Miss Mary," he murmured on a walk through the gardens, "a young woman like you understands the need to evolve beyond obsolete structures." She, prudently, confessed interest in the philosophy, but noted the caution of her position as a governess. "But among trusted people, discussion is free," he provoked. This opened the doors to a crucial invitation. She was called to a literary meeting at Dr. Matthews's house in Newport, actually a seditionist cell in disguise. On a Thursday night, the isolated mansion on the outskirts of the city bustled with high society. 15 people, many of them women actively engaged. Something shocking for traditional circles debated heatedly. Dr. Matthews, a 60-year-old man with grey beards, began, "We will discuss the writings on positivism and its application to the American government." Mary deciphered the code. Positivism was radicalism, application to the government, the overthrow of the administration. She mentally registered names, functions, comments. The plan: a series of demonstrations on the president's birthday to generate instability. But the alarm sounded when Professor Albert raised the tone. They were no longer philosophical discussions. Sometimes, he fixed his gaze on those present, historical change demands sacrifices. People who represent the old system may need to be removed. A shiver ran through Mary. It was a plan for political assassination. With her mind in a whirlwind, Mary returned to the Nash House. She had not only discovered a seditionist cell, but a group willing to kill. The urgency to inform Lieutenant Rogers was palpable. The next day, on her day off, she sent a ciphered letter using the code of literary citations learned in training. 3 days later, the reply arrived, equally ciphered: "Continue investigation, maximum caution." At the next meeting, Mary knew even more dangerous details would come. The target was President Grant himself. He strolled through the public gardens of Newport during his seasons, a notorious habit. Professor Albert argued, the president walks with fragile security. The idea was clear. An accident. A shot from a devoted patriot martyred by the guards. Thus, the cause would gain a martyr, and the government would lose its symbol. Mary felt horror freeze her chest. Regicide was being plotted. "When?" she asked, masking the apprehension. "The next presidential visit to Newport in 2 weeks. Little time." She needed irrefutable proof. It was then that Mary made the most audacious decision. She offered herself. "Professor Albert, a young woman raises fewer suspicions. I can signal the movement of the guard." Albert stared at her, eyes lit. "Mary, your courage is what we need." To serve the cause, she lied, and her stomach turned. But the president's life depended on it. Mary quickly found herself at the epicenter of the conspiracy. In secret meetings, she discovered that the president was just the beginning. Other officials were also in the crosshairs. Weapons came from rogue military men. The assassin, August Ferreira, no, August Smith, a fanatical youth, ready to die for the cause. She mapped the network: financiers, arms suppliers, intricate logistics, and executors. A complex web extended through Washington, Virginia, and New York. With 3 days left, an urgent message. Lieutenant Rogers would arrive in Newport with reinforcements the following night. Mary needed a safe place to deliver everything, but that same afternoon the plan crumbled. Mrs. Eulalia summoned her to the study, a grave look on her face. "Mary, I need clarifications about your past." "Of course," she replied, trying to keep calm. "I received a letter. An acquaintance from Oak Creek describes a young woman, Mary Miller, identical to you." Mary's blood ran cold. Her charade was exposed. "Coincidence," she stammered. "Mary is a common name." "The description is too precise," retorted Eulalia. "This Mary Miller was involved in the arrest of a senator for conspiracy." Mrs. Eulalia turned from the window. "Mary, or rather, Agent Miller, you are a federal spy." Denying was useless. Honesty was her last trump card. "Yes," she confessed, "I am with the Union, and you plan a regicide." A chilly smile. "Thank you for confirming. Albert always doubted. Too young, too intelligent, too curious." Mary assessed the escape. Impossible, guards at the door. "What will you do with me? You know too much to be free, and we know too little to waste a source." Eulalia rang a bell. 2 armed men burst in. "Take her to the cellar, carefully. She is still useful." The mansion's cellar was now a makeshift prison. In the oppressive silence of a damp and dark room, Mary Miller lay handcuffed. Guards in ceaseless shifts ensured surveillance. Hours of interrogation dragged on. Conspirators sought details about agents, communications, cells. Mary, resilient, remained firm, her training echoing. 2 days to the attack. Lieutenant Rogers, unaware of her capture, was her only hope. On the second night, the unthinkable happened. When the guard stepped away, John, the gardener, whispered, "Miss Mary, I recognized you. The lady who saved people at Sunnyvale Estate." Surprise swallowed Mary. How did he know about the Virginia farm? "My brother Francis was there. He sent news telling of your bravery." A spark of hope flickered. "John, can you help me?" He paled. "Huge risk. The president will be dead in 2 days. This could generate civil war." His eyes wandered to the door. "If I am discovered, I am dead. But if I don't help, thousands will die." With a sigh, John decided, "What must I do?" "Take a message to Lieutenant Rogers at the Imperial Hotel. Say, the red rose will bloom tomorrow in the main garden at sunrise. He will understand." John nodded, disappearing. That night, Mary only prayed. The morning of the attack brought Professor Albert for the final interrogation. "Mary, your last chance. Speak, and perhaps live." "I prefer to die than betray my country." The professor sneered. "Noble but useless. In a few hours the president will be dead. A new era will be born." Leaving, he paused, calculating. "Our gardener was caught trying to flee. He is being interrogated at this very moment." Mary's heart collapsed. John had been discovered. At 10 in the morning, the house erupted in chaos. Footsteps, screams, doors slamming. A guard plummeted into the cellar, panting, "Aborted! The house is surrounded by federal soldiers!" Overwhelming relief flooded Mary. Her message finally had reached. Shots tore the air, furniture shattered. The battle had begun. The cellar door flew open and federal soldiers descended en masse. In front, Lieutenant Rogers, pistol drawn. "Mary, hurt? I am fine." "How did you know?" "A wounded gardener found us. Said you saved folks back home, deserved saving." "Is John alive?" "Hurt, but alive. Doctors are tending to him." Free from the handcuffs, Mary could barely stand. And the conspirators? Majority arrested. Professor Albert tried to flee, captured on the road to Boston. The surrender of Mrs. Eulalia was swift. The fanatic August Smith, captured before touching the presidential palace. Mary Miller's operation not only saved President Grant, but dismantled the largest seditionist conspiracy in history. A week later, Mary was at the presidential retreat in Newport. The leader, a president of 60 with an imposing beard, received her in his study. "Miss Mary Miller," he declared with a grave and solemn voice, "the nation has an unpayable debt to you." "Mr. President, I only did my duty," Mary retorted. The president smiled. "You risked your life for the stability of the entire country. That goes far beyond duty." He picked up an official document. For your exceptional services, I grant you the Medal of Freedom, a lifetime pension, and land in Virginia." Mary was shocked. From abused orphan to lady of the land in just 2 years? It seemed unreal. "Sir, I don't know what to say. Just continue serving the country with the same courage you have demonstrated until now." After the audience, Mary walked through the palace gardens with Lieutenant Rogers. "And now what is your next step?" he asked. "Continue as an agent, of course, but John will be trained too. That young man has courage and deserves a chance." "I was already thinking of that. And I have other news. Helen from Boston finished school and wants to join us." Mary smiled. Her first friend was also choosing the path of service to the country. "It seems we are forming a family of those who fight for justice." 6 months later, Mary returned to Virginia, now owner of lands ironically neighboring the old Sunnyvale estate. Her first visit was to Francis, who had bought his own property with government money. "Mary, or rather Miss Mary," he exclaimed, hugging her warmly. "To you, I will always be just Mary. How is the life of a free man?" "Better than I dreamed. I have a small tobacco field, 2 dairy cows, and, look at this. I built a school for the children of the region." "A school?" Mary was moved. The man who spent 60 years in servitude now educated the new generation. "I remember what Helen always said. Education is the one thing no one can take away from a person." "Francis, I have a proposal. My lands are vast. How about we join as partners? Together, we can build something truly important here." His eyes watered. A partnership between the former maid and the former servant. Friends who, after surviving the worst moments, opted to build a better future. That afternoon, a carriage brought Helen, now an 18-year-old woman, elegant and confident, accompanied by John, who had completed his training as an agent. "Mary!" Helen ran to hug her. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too, and I am proud of your choice. I learned with the best teacher. We can choose our destiny no matter our origin." John approached Shire. "Miss Mary, thank you for believing in me, for risking your life for mine. We are a family now." 2 years later, Mary, at 23, had become one of the most respected agents of the government, as well as a prosperous farmer and educator. The property of Mary Miller and Francis was a beacon, a regional model where workers prospered as wage earners, and excellent crops funded a school for more than 50 children. Helen infiltrated high society with her sophistication. John, an expert in the field, dominated the popular classes. On a Sunday from the patio, Helen reflected, "Our lives turned inside out, since the Sunnyvale estate of Senator Sebastian Albright." Mary Miller replied, "We chose to fight, not to conform." Francis, at 65, vibrant, smiled, "Elizabeth would be proud. Justice, teaching, freedom, her legacy." John, the youngest, pointed to a letter. "Mary, Lieutenant Rogers reports. Suspicion on the southern border. Smuggling financing insurrectionists." Mary Miller read, and Helen asked, "Do we accept?" Mary Miller, looking at the fruit of her efforts, decided, "Of course, but this time we all go. We are a team." Francis laughed. "Peculiar, isn't it? An old man of 65, 2 humble ladies, a gardener. Who would have thought?" Mary Miller concluded, "Our origins do not matter. What matters is the destiny we trace." The sun set over the Virginia mountains, gilding the fields and the school. Mary Miller smiled. Her journey of fighting for justice, educating, protecting was just beginning. The girl who suffered had become the defender of the defenseless. Great transformations are born of despair. Mary Miller proved, with courage and intelligence we rewrite our story and that of the nation.